encourage you to go ahead and grab your Bibles and to get ready, because we're looking at a book that I don't believe I have ever preached from. It's a book that I have definitely read, that I have looked at in other circumstances, but I don't believe that I've ever actually preached from it. We're looking at the book of Ruth. So it's an Old Testament book. It's a very short book. It's only 4 chapters long. And if you're looking in your Bible, it's very close to the front. It's right after the book of Judges and right before the book of Samuel. So keep turning until you get between Judges and Samuel, and you're right there in the book of Ruth. It's 4 chapters long. It's a book that I would actually encourage you to go home and read, because you can probably read it in 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't take that long. But it's a great story about a lady named Ruth. And we're going to look at Ruth this morning because I believe that the life that she lived, the legacy that she left, is one of excellence. And it brings to mind this question again: what kind of legacy am I leaving? What will people say about me? What do people say about me? What will be said? And how will it be done? Those are things that we don't often think about. But what we do today determines how things will go tomorrow. It makes a huge impact on this. And so let's look at Ruth chapter 1. And I'm going to read a little bit more than I typically do, because I don't think that most of us are very familiar with this story. And so I want you to really catch what's going on here. We're going to start with right at the beginning, Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name, Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephraimites from Bethlehem, Judah. And they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. When she heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, in other words, that the famine was over, Naomi and her daughter-in-laws prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show kindness to you as you have shown to your dead and to me. The Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud and said to her, "We will go back with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me." And they wept again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. "Look," said Naomi, "your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. If anything but death separates you and me, if anything but death separates you and me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the 2 women went on until they came to Bethlehem, and when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. A little bit of background on what's going on here. Here we have a family, and they set out from their hometown. Because there was famine in the land, there was no food, things were not going well, so they set off, all 4 of them, Elimelech, Naomi, their 2 sons, and they went to Moab. And they lived there. As they lived there, the sons grew to marrying age, and they married Moabite women. It wasn't too much longer until both the husband had died and both sons. And now we have 3 widows together. Naomi receives word that the famine has ended, that it's a good time to go back because she has nothing else there. And so it is good for her to go back, and she makes the plan to go and to send her daughters-in-law home. Not a bad plan, right? That's their home country. Why wouldn't they want to stay? They're still young women from the text that we read, and so they have a chance to marry again, to have family, to have a husband who will provide for them, to have children who will be there with them, and also, really importantly, to have a son who will be the caregiver for them, who will take care of them. And so her plan is to return home and to send her 2 daughter-in-laws back to their homes. It's not a bad plan. There was nothing wrong with it. And as she presents it to them the first time, Orpah, and it looks so close to Oprah, so if I slip, I apologize. I try so hard to get names and places and stuff like that right. It is tough, so if I slip, please forgive me just in advance. Orpah takes her up on the offer, not initially, but after some more urging. And it sounds like these 3 women were pretty close, that it was going to be tough for her to leave. But after hearing her mother-in-law's plea, she decides that there was some good wisdom in that, and so she returns home. She is not to be condemned for that, because she did what was asked of her. She did something that was okay. It was at her mother-in-law's instruction that she did this. She didn't say, my husband has passed, your son is no longer here, I'm done with you. Her mother-in-law was leaving and said, please stay in your land. Go back to your home, get another husband, take some comfort there. And so after much urging, she does that. But Ruth just won't hear of it. She says, absolutely not. In fact, she makes this amazing covenant. Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. That's pretty strong words, right? Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Everything that is yours, I will accept as my own. Wow. We often say that. Usually we say, we'll accept what I like, and I'll keep the rest. I'll keep the rest that I'm very comfortable with. And Ruth says, I will take everything that is yours and accept it as mine. In fact, where you die, I will die. And there I will be buried. Even when you are dead, I am not just running back here. I am staying where you are. And there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. Have you ever argued with somebody you realize at some point there's no point in arguing with? That was the conversation here. Naomi really tried. She knew that Ruth probably needed a husband, that she would pass most likely before Ruth would pass, and that she would need someone to help take care of her. She would need someone in this situation. Now understand, as we look at men and women, very, very different society. We have women now who work, who are skilled, who do things great on their own, and I think it is phenomenal that we are moving much more to an equalitarian society. I like it. But in this time period, women needed a man to provide for them. There weren't a lot of things that they could do. There weren't a lot of things that they were allowed to do, would be the better way to say it. And so she realized what kind of life Ruth would be stuck with if she came with her back to Bethlehem. Because Ruth was from Moab. She was in her home country. She's about to leave it to become a foreigner. So now not only is she a widower, but she's a foreigner. She doesn't know anyone. And so Naomi is really trying to get Ruth to look out for herself and to be realistic about her needs and to take care of herself. Doesn't that sound like something that we do with people today? You need to make sure that you're taking care of your needs. You need to make sure that you have enough food on your table, or that your children are being taken care of, or that your home is taken care of. All of these different things. And there is nothing wrong with that. But Ruth says, you know what? I am more concerned about you than I am about me. And I am not going to leave you. Ruth gives an excellent response. She gives an amazing response to Naomi's plea for Ruth's own safety, for Ruth's own well-being. She says, I am not going to leave you, no matter what you say. So you might as well stop trying to convince me that I need to go back. It's not going to happen. You know what I see here is a very strong woman. Two very strong women, right? Because Naomi isn't saying, oh, woe is me. My husband is gone, my sons are gone, and now it's the three women, and how can we do this? She says, look, I have heard word that the famine is over. I can go back to my homeland. I will send my daughters back to their homes. And we can do this. We can all do this. Naomi says, Naomi's ready to do this? Ruth says, oh no, not without me. You are not going without me. I will give up everything and go with you. What an excellent response. In fact, it is this great image of what the Hebrew people understood as Hesed love. H-E-S-E-D. Very strong H. In fact, you should almost spit when you say it. Well, just to try and help you out there. We often translate it as kindness or loyalty. But it is really this kind of, you are stuck with me kind of love. Not stuck with me and I'm going to make you miserable. No, not that kind of. But you are stuck with me. I love you so much. I am not leaving you. There is a loyalty. There is a kindness inherent to it. There is I am not just worried about my needs. I am worried about yours as well. In fact, you matter to me. That is the understanding of this love. And it really refers to care or concern of another with whom one is in relationship. Isn't that what we see here between Naomi and Ruth? Especially from Ruth's perspective. And it seems like Orpah was close with Naomi too. It sounds like they were crying as they left, and she didn't just run at first chance. She went on the instruction of her mother-in-law. There was a closeness here. And yet Ruth chooses more of this Hesed love. And this love really takes shape in action to rescue the other from a situation of desperate need. Naomi's in a pretty desperate situation, right? She's about to make a long journey on her own. She knows where she's going, but she probably doesn't have a whole lot to get there. Pretty desperate need, all three of them. The simplest thing is to divide up, to go back, and to make sure that you have a good life for yourself. But Ruth chooses to accompany her aging mother-in-law to a new land instead of staying home in her homeland to take care of herself. Think about how different that is. She chooses to give up everything so that she can take care of someone that she loves. And let's not forget what that relationship is. Her mother-in-law. Yeah, there's some laugh in there, right? Because mother and daughter-in-laws are not known worldwide, right, for the best of relationships. It can happen, and you can see some phenomenal relationships between mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. But isn't that almost more the exception than the rule? Usually it's a bit of a struggle for mother-in-law and daughter-in-laws to get along. And if you are the husband/son, you never say things like, well, that's not how mom did it. Yeah, it just doesn't go well. So when you think about this, you've got to remember who this is. This isn't just her aunt or her favorite aunt. This is someone, and she married into the family, and there was a connection there and a decision to really love one another. To really go the distance. That term of loyalty, I think it's something that kind of disappears easily. We seem to be loyal when it's convenient. And in this situation that Ruth and Naomi were in, There is nothing convenient about it. In fact, it is quite difficult to be loyal in this setup. Naomi offered Ruth the chance to stay home and have a normal life. Get married again, have kids, stay in the land that you've always known, stay where you're comfortable, and Ruth rejects it over being with Naomi. That is amazing. Now, I think about this. We often romanticize things of the unknown. You ever dream about going to a place you've never been? And I'll tell you, one of my favorite things, I love the Destination America channel because they do all these, buying Alaska, buying Dubai, these travel places. And I look at all of these cool places that we could go. And I'm like, you know what? There are bears there are snakes there. Let's not forget about hurricanes and alligators and everything else. Because in this brief moment, this idea of the unknown seems really romantic, really enticing. Hey, let's go check this out. It's new. It'll be good. Sometimes new is good. Sometimes new is bad. Right? And so I don't want to just romanticize this idea that Ruth is all looking forward for a change of scenery. She's just ready for something different. No, she was getting ready to go to a life that was going to be very, very tough for her. Because not only was she a widow, she was about to become a foreigner. And foreigners weren't welcome. In fact, if you notice what happens here, we go from this being about Ruth and Naomi and the family being foreigners, to all of a sudden Ruth is now known as the Moabitess. Her name changes. The way she is identified to everybody changes. All of a sudden she went from being the native citizen, welcoming in these foreigners, to the foreigner hoping she'll be welcomed in. Big change. Not like moving from Pennsylvania to West Virginia, or Pennsylvania to Ohio, or wherever you might want to move.
Okay. Sounds great.
Very easy for us to move that way. Not the case for Ruth and Naomi. And she was committing to a one-way journey. She was going to go here, live here, and die here. That is commitment. That is loyalty. That is a legacy of excellence. It's not just a romanticized week vacation. What happens is that word of Ruth spreads in the land. I think for a couple of reasons. Number one, they all knew Naomi. As soon as she traveled back, the whole town was abuzz, right? Small town. Anything that happens, everybody knows about it before it happens. Kind of like Meadville, doesn't that sound very familiar? I mean, you really can't do anything here without people finding out about it. It is, I'll tell you right now, it's good motivation to behave. Just so you know. Something happens, everybody knows about it, and you would think that that just got worse with social media, but the old social media worked really well. The old grapevines, the old gossip lines, they were very efficient, and they got just as many facts wrong. And so as Naomi is returning home, everybody in the land knows that not only is Naomi returning, but she is bringing that Moabite daughter-in-law. Can you believe that? Can you believe? She is bringing that foreigner back here? What is she thinking? And so the whole town begins to talk. But then the story begins to spread of, well, can you believe that she came with her? And here she's taking care of her. I heard that Naomi told her she could stay and have a normal life. And she chose to come with her. And the story begins to spread of Ruth. The whole town begins to know the story of Naomi and Ruth and all of the bad that happened, all of the unbelievable that happened. And we end up with Ruth developing an excellent reputation because of the way she has treated and cared and loved her mother-in-law. When we pick back up in chapter 2, now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone whose eyes I find favor." Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So she went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the same clan. Just as Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters, "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they called back. Boaz asked the foreman of his harvesters, "Whose young woman is that?" The foreman replied, "She is the Moabitess who came back from Moab with Naomi. She said, 'Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters.' She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter." So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the girls. I have told the men not to touch you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." At this she bowed down, and with her face to the ground she exclaimed, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. How you have left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with the people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." "May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord," she said. "You have given me comfort and have spoken kindly to the servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servant girls." At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here. Have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, "Even if she gathers among the sheaves, don't embarrass her. Rather, pull out some of the stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her." So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered, and it amounted about an ephah. She carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered, and Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over from lunch and had not eaten. I could continue on there, but look at what we learn about Ruth in this. Not only is she loyal, she's a hard worker. She is not afraid to do whatever needs to be done to provide for herself, but also her mother-in-law. She develops this excellent reputation, and the whole town hears about it. Boaz arrives on the scene, and he says, "Who is this young woman?" Or, "Who does she belong to?" is almost the question that's asked. And when he finds out that this is Ruth, he doesn't say, "Oh no, not her." "Oh yes, I've heard what she's done for her mother-in-law. I have heard how she's taken care of Naomi. And so because of what she has done, because of the way she is living, because of the legacy she is building," Boaz says, "We're going to take good care of her. We are going to make sure that she has what she needs." In fact, he already tells the men not to touch her. That is a big deal. She is a foreign woman. She is the lowest of the low. If men were to do anything to her, no one would care. No one would do anything. And the very first thing he offers her is protection from harm. Isn't that awesome? He offers her protection and says, "No one will harm you here. You may be a foreigner, but in my house you are welcome. In my field you are welcome." And then he goes on to say, "In fact, I don't want you to go and to glean or to gather up the leftovers." Really nice way of saying that. "I don't want you to go and pick the leftovers up anywhere else. I want you to come right here, and there will always be enough for you. Stay right here, and I will make sure that you have what you need. In fact, you are welcome to go and draw water that the men pulled for themselves." It's getting better, isn't it? Not only is she safe while she's working, not only is she allowed to continue staying there, not only does she have a place to come back to tomorrow, he offers her water in the meantime. And then when the men sit down to eat, he brings her over, he feeds her. Did you catch how much he gave her? She ate all she wanted with leftovers. She got a doggy bag to take home. It's pretty cool, isn't it? And then he tells the men that even if she does something wrong. Now this is a big deal because the Old Testament, the law, had several different passages that talked about how gleaning was to be done, what could be harvested, what couldn't be harvested. And the edges of the field were to be left alone because that's where you would glean from if you were a widow or an orphan or a foreigner. This is where you would gather your food from the edges. And so the men would leave that alone. And they say that even if she doesn't know the law and she does this wrong, don't you say a word to her. You let her run. In fact, if she comes up and she's picking right next to you, you pull out a few of the stalks that you gathered and give them to her. I have to believe that part of this stems from the legacy she had built with her mother-in-law. She had shown that she was very caring, that she was kind, that she was loyal, and that she was taking her mother-in-law as her own mother. And so this reputation begins to precede her. There was no food pantry. There was no guarantee of food. There were no food stamps. There was nothing that guaranteed you would eat. That's why this gleaning was such a big deal. And so all of a sudden, Ruth is in a place where she's guaranteed food. She's guaranteed that she and Naomi will have enough to eat. If you were to read Ruth 3:10, you would read, "And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character." This is the legacy she's developing. And that actually comes from Boaz. A woman of noble character. Chapter 4. The women of the town, they said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. That is that son, that is that provider, that guardian redeemer, the one who will take care of you, who will provide for your needs. Praise that God that you have not been left without a guardian redeemer. Her sons died, right? They're talking about Ruth. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons has given him birth. Think about this. In an age where men were regarded as the one that you really wanted in offspring because they would continue the name, from a male standpoint, men continued the legacy. They said it is better that you have a daughter-in-law like Ruth than 7 sons. Now, one of the things we know about the number 7 in biblical times is that it's a perfect number, right? This is saying it is better that you have Ruth than the perfect sons. What a compliment. What a praise to this woman, Ruth, who she is, the character that she has demonstrated, the legacy that she has left. And never forget, Ruth is a foreigner in the land. So she has really had a bunch of strikes against her from the beginning. Because of the way she has handled herself and the way she has treated her mother-in-law, the women of the town describe Ruth as better than perfect sons. That is an unheard of description. It's remarkable. And so she gives us an excellent example. Ruth shows us what kindness looks like. If you want to know what kindness is, here it is. If you want to know what loyalty looks like, here it is. If you want to know what love, real love, not the Hollywood on TV, puppy dog love looks like. Love that is sacrificial, love that gives and serves and loves others. Scriptural love that we read about in 1 Corinthians 13, here it is. If you want to know what faith looks like, here it is. Imagine to have the faith to say, I will go wherever you go. Your land will be my land. Your God will be my God. Imagine that kind of faith. We get to see what trust looks like. between family members, between a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. We get to see what integrity looks like. And we get to see what a legacy of excellence looks like. Where this all comes down to is that too often we are concerned with number one. We are concerned with our own needs. And we do have needs, we do have things that we need to take care of, we do have things that we need to make sure that we provide for, but we only stay concerned there. And Ruth shows us something different. She doesn't say, I'm just going to look out for myself. She says, I'm going to look out for you. I am going to take care of you. I'm going to make sure that you have what you need. In fact, I will take care of you until the very day that you die. And even then, I will not abandon you. What makes this all the more amazing to me is remembering that Naomi offered Ruth a get-out-of-jail-free card. You can go, no penalty, no questions asked, no problems. You can go home. You're released. Go have a normal life. And Ruth refused it. Well, this is almost a fairy tale ending, isn't it? It's the perfect ending. Because if you read the rest of this, Boaz and Ruth end up getting married. Ruth does have a son. And we're like, wow, that's good. Sure hope it works out like that. But as we look at this, you can't forget the pain that was experienced. You can't forget the loss, the fear, the rejection, the unknown, everything that was experienced. Because it's easy to say, I will go if I know it's going to work out well. Right? That's not really a risk at all. And most of us, we want to know it's going to work out well before we go. They had no idea what was coming. Especially Ruth. Well, maybe they did, but it sure wasn't the fairy tale ending that we end up with. They know it would be a life of service, of love, of caring, of hard work. And yet, they went anyway. My hope is that as we look and think about Ruth's legacy, that our own legacy comes to mind. The things that we do, the things that we say, the way that we live, the way we take care of others, or if we're concerned about ourselves. What is the legacy that we are building right now? Because I don't think Ruth woke up one day and said, you know what? I hope that several thousand years later, people say I left a good legacy. Right? I don't even know that she was concerned that the people of the town would have a positive opinion of her. I think she was concerned about one thing: doing the right thing in each moment. Doesn't that make it a little bit simpler? She wasn't focused on the long-term picture. Well, she was, but she was taking the steps in the immediate future, or the immediate present. Taking the right steps right now. And the thing that she saw as more important than just taking care of her own future was making sure that her mother-in-law would be taken care of. Questions that I think we should ask ourselves when we talk about our legacy. Are we demonstrating kindness? I don't just mean talking about kindness. And I don't just mean saying a kind word every now and then. Are we living, breathing, demonstrating kindness to those around us? This is tough. Especially when I drive, or I'm in the grocery store, or my children are driving me crazy and the phone's ringing, or the phone rang and now my children are crazy. Seems to be the way it goes. Are we demonstrating kindness? Are we demonstrating loyalty? How about love? And I don't mean the Hollywood love, I mean real love. Faith, trust, integrity. My hope and prayer is that as we look at this, that our desire would be that we build a legacy of excellence. It is a lifetime of work, of daily choices. Because if we're not building a legacy of excellence, we're building a different legacy. And it's a question of which one do we want? Where do we want to be? How do we want to live? How do we want to be known? Ruth gives us a great example. And I love Ruth's story. I read half of this for you today. If you really want, I can read the other half. I'm not in a hurry. I've got time. Nobody's shaking their head no. Nobody's saying yes either. Very shocked. You're contemplating and you're trying to make the right choice, right? How about this? Would you try and read the rest of it this week? I bet 10, 12 minutes you could be done. I'd encourage you to read the rest of the story of Ruth. 4 chapters, bookmark it, and you'll have to find later. But read really about the rest of Ruth's life. And as you do that, after you finish reading it, spend a few moments in reflection. So God, maybe you and I need to talk. Because as I look right now, I'm not so sure that I'm living the legacy of excellence. Or God, I know where I'm at, and I know where I think you're calling me. Help me get there. Let's pray. God, thank you for today. Thank you for this time together. And God, as we read this story of Ruth, God, thank you for faithful men and women. Thank you for men and women who have chosen a path that sure models Christ. God, as we are walking our paths, as we are doing our best to follow you, God, may we be men and women who leave a legacy that points towards you, that points towards something different other than the societal norm. God, can we leave a legacy that says, yes, that man, yes, that woman loved God, and this is what they did, this is how we know it, and it has changed people's hearts and lives. God, I pray for each person here. I pray for each person in our community. God, may we be men and women who leave a legacy of excellence.